Hey everyone, this is Shreyas and finally I've decided to make two separate videos about the S23 Ultra versus the Pixel 7 Pro. This is going to be about software design, performance, benchmarks, everything apart from the camera. The camera comparison is going to be its own dedicated video, so stay subscribed because there is a lot to unravel in the camera section. These are the best two phones from these particular OEMs. So yeah, without any further delay, let's check these out. I'm just not going to refer to the materials and specs of the materials, but I'm going to tell you about the practical differences between these two. Camera module over here protrudes a bit, so definitely rocks on the table. Because of the tight curvature over here and the boxy design, it kind of digs into your palm, so not that comfortable to hold overall. But the weight balancing is really good, so it does not feel top heavy or anything like that, although there's so much camera hardware. On the Pixel 7 Pro, the camera bar makes sure you don't have any table wobble. It is way slimmer, smaller, lighter and easier to hold thanks to the curvature. One design quirk I'll actually mention is that the Pixel 7 Pro does not really charge in my car because it's almost in a wedge format, because of which the contact pad of wireless charger and the wireless charging coil in the phone are not close enough. I've tried a lot of hacks, positioning and stuff like that. Just doesn't work as well. The S23 Ultra had no problems. The Pixel 7 Pro works completely fine on flat wireless chargers, so that's something to keep in mind, and keep in mind the wireless chargers you have if you're considering the Pixel 7 Pro. That's all I gotta say. Next, let's move on to the displays. So the displays are almost spec for spec, almost similar. The only thing is that this gets a little bit brighter, especially under bright sunlight. Doesn't matter how much nits this is. Pixel 7 Pro is bright enough, but if you look at it under direct sunlight, the S23 Ultra definitely gets brighter. I think the S23 Ultra is a slightly superior panel as well and tuned very well. I turned both of these into its natural color profiles. I don't really like the vibrant color profiles on both of these. So that's been my comparison. And watching content on both of these has been really good. The experience has been really awesome. No problems in terms of frame rate as well. Both go up to 120 Hz, but this comes down to 24 Hz and is way more optimized in terms of an LTPO panel. The 7 Pro comes down to only 60 Hz and jumps between 60 and 120. So that matters in the efficiency part of it, which I will later visit in the video. The only thing I would say is that the Samsung does not support Dolby Vision, which a lot of budget phones are also starting to support, and same with the Pixel 7 Pro as well. But my hopes were a bit higher from Samsung given the obvious price difference between the two. So if you have to pick one between the two just for display sake, I will definitely side with the Samsung for its slight edge over the Pixel 7 Pro. I think that point again goes to the Samsung S23 Ultra because the speakers are definitely richer, louder and has more depth and bass. Obviously is not bad on the Pixel 7 Pro, but the stereo separation is almost 50-50 on the S23 Ultra, which is damn impressive. Now I used to feel that the speaker separation is very good on the Pixel 7 Pro as well, but the S23 Ultra definitely changed my mind. Pixel 7 Pro is not a bad speaker setup at all. Definitely good enough to be among the flagships, but the S23 Ultra is just that half point ahead, because of which it will definitely get an edge and would be a media consumer's delight. The one thing I like again about the S23 Ultra is going to be the fingerprint sensor. The ultrasonic fingerprint sensor has been great. It's very responsive, and the best part is that you can just tap and let go. You don't really have to press down your finger or anything. Now, I did not have any problems with the Pixel 7 Pro fingerprint reader compared to the 6 Pro series, which had a lot of issues and were plagued. This one works pretty fine. You kind of have to press down on the screen a bit. It's very fast. No accuracy problems from my end and has been really great. But the implementation and the added security that an ultrasonic fingerprint actually takes a 3D scan of your fingerprint rather than a 2D image of your fingerprint on the Pixel 7 Pro is definitely an edge that goes to the Samsung. The next thing would be the haptics, which is A+ on both of these in terms of sensation and the feedback you get from these phones while using and interacting with the phone. The edge I would give to the Pixel 7 Pro because of its implementation in the UI. Now there are way more places in the UI where the Pixel 7 Pro gives a very nice and apt haptic feedback compared to almost no haptic feedback in some similar conditions on the Samsung S23 Ultra. Now I think that's a One UI thing. Samsung has to bake in haptics with certain actions or gestures. So that's about it. Even in third-party apps, I have gotten way more, haptic feedback responses in certain, conditions compared to the same third-party apps not having haptic feedback for similar functions on the S23 Ultra. So if you have to talk about haptics overall, the 7 Pro is a winner from my end. Moving on to the battery and charging. Let's go to the charging. Both have been finicky. Pixel 7 Pro promises 30 watt charging and I have never seen it cross 25 watts. The S23 Ultra promises 45 watt charging, which I ultimately did get, although I had problems in the initial days, which I tweeted about. So make sure you're following me on Twitter, and I have also mentioned in my full review. So make sure you watch the full review of both these phones, because that will help set more context about the comparison. There'll be link down below, or you can check it out in the link over here. The battery charging time from 0 to 80 is very similar for both these phones, and I have adaptive charging always on the Pixel 7 Pro, which obviously leads to the last 20% taking a lot of time. The S23 Ultra takes around 1 hour to 10 minutes to charge, whereas the Pixel 7 Pro almost takes 1.5 hours, 1 hour 25 minutes. But that's the thing, this has 45 watt charging and this has 23 or to 25 watt charging based on what the readings I saw. Now about the battery life. Surprisingly, I got very similar battery life on both of these. Not just that, I went to the extent of installing the QPR Beta 2 to get 5G signal on my Pixel 7 Pro as well, because that is not yet enabled. And I got 5.5 to 6 hours on screen on time on both of these devices. The S23 Ultra actually comes out of the box at FHD+, so I set it to QHD+. This was also by default set to QHD+. The thing I noted was the S23 Ultra always on display consumes a lot of battery. So the S23 Ultra actually tends to give you better battery life in terms of screen on time, at least if you're using the phone more, which is kind of ironical. Whereas the Pixel 7 Pro is not the battery champ, definitely, but the always on display is way more well optimized. So if you are having lighter days, this will probably outlast the S23 Ultra. If you have the always on display off, which is what I noticed overnight, and you let the phone just stay, the idle drain on the S23 Ultra is extremely good. It's just 1 to 2%. Whereas the Pixel 7 Pro loses at least 5% overnight. Okay, let's move on to the performance, and here actually I don't have a clear winner. It actually depends on your usage, and now let me explain. If you're a heavy user, and by heavy user I mean, do you use heavy apps like video rendering, taking long hours of video samples and stuff like that right from your camera, editing on your phone as well, be it pictures or something like that, and not to mention gaming as well. This is the type of user you are, you will definitely get good performance only out of the S23 Ultra. Now, the Pixel 7 Pro is not bad, but definitely not recommended for gaming. The other part is definitely going to be about the benchmarks. The benchmarks are obviously not impressive in case of the 7 Pro. The S23 Ultra is definitely a huge step up in terms of performance compared to the 7 Pro. One major thing which actually bugged me about the Pixel 7 Pro is going to be about the long duration of video recording. But if you let just 4K 60 FPS recording on both of these phones, the Pixel 7 Pro stops after around 20 to 25 minutes because of overheating and gives you a message that the device is too hot. The S23 Ultra just goes on and on and on, and I'm kind of confident, given the sample and the temperature I've seen, that it would go on till the battery runs out. So this went on for almost 1.5 hours and no sign of stopping, so I stopped the experiment. Definitely the S23 Ultra is going to be a more reliable in that particular use scenario. But if I talk about light usage, especially web browsing, social media, posting online and stuff like that, taking calls, messaging, etc., both are really good. No problems in that case. The only thing that comes down is the software, because the software optimization on the Pixel 7 Pro is just something else. Animations, there is almost zero stutter on this phone, and still now it's close to 6 months since its release. Obviously it has been getting software updates and it's gotten better over time. It leaves room for improvement for the S23 Ultra. It's been under a month since its launch, so there is a long way to go for the S23 Ultra to improve. I will cover a long-term review, so stay subscribed on the channel for that. If I have to be honest, when after a long day I switch to the Google pane, there is kind of a stutter I face there. Not just that, in few apps, especially where there is long scrolling, like the Galaxy wearable app, where I scroll through the app list of the notification, it just clearly stutters. I have the same app on the Pixel 7 Pro, no issues whatsoever. I don't get it. and that's a Samsung app. Even in some other third-party apps, there are some stutters here and there. Not a lot, rare, maybe 5 times a week I have faced something like that, and that too for a second or two. But it's been flawless on the Pixel 7 Pro. So if you talk about app optimization, especially UI experience, my point goes to the Pixel 7 Pro straight up. And that's going to be about the day-to-day usage and the software experience as well. Coming to the software experience, I am again going to side with the Pixel 7 Pro. Now here is my major complaint against the S23 Ultra. It's just third-party apps, bloatware, and a lot of pointless Samsung services pushed into this phone after paying such a premium for a flagship. That I don't really like, and I'm not going to appreciate, and I'm always going to deduct points for that for any phone whatsoever. But in case of Samsung, even if I keep the essential first-party apps aside, there are a lot of other first-party apps which are totally unnecessary, and also a lot of Microsoft apps, not to mention other third-party apps like Netflix and Spotify pre-installed on this when you set up this phone. So that's going to be a deduction in marks, but not to mention there are features and benefits to the Samsung ecosystem and the features they try to bake in. My best list of features are going to be modes and routines. These are really good. You have a lot of customization that you can do with every task you want to do. Samsung Wallet is one of my favorite things that I really liked, especially because you could integrate it with government IDs and stuff. Another couple of software things I really like about the S23 Ultra is going to be Pixie Call Text. It is a way more elegant form of caption calling. The UI on the Pixel 7 Pro is not that great for caption calling. The next thing would be the PNG conversion in the Gallery app natively. So I really like that. But if I have to ask about finesse of the features baked into the Pixel which are exclusive to the Pixel, it is way better. For example, just the Magic Eraser or the Object Eraser on the S23 Ultra both do a fabulous job of removing the object from the frame, and in some cases the S23 Ultra even does it better. Where the Pixel actually enhances the user experience is that it auto detects and points you out which objects to remove from the frame if it can detect things that are probably unwanted and is not the subject of the frame, and it can do with both living and non-living objects. You can remove all that with press of one button after it detects it locally. You have to do that extra step of selecting everything you want to remove on the S23 Ultra. At a glance widget is such a game changer. I missed it so much on the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now don't get me wrong, you can add the at a glance widget over here and it syncs perfectly well as usual. But what happens on the Pixel 7 Pro is that it's there on the lock screen as well as the always on display. And that's why even if I'm not actively using my phone and even if I glance over the notifications or something, I know I have an important meeting coming up. And that's why it's considered a very smart smartphone compared to the S23 Ultra. Personally, I prefer the experience on the Pixel 7 Pro. Android 13 was the first time where the API for Material You theming was just baked into Android. Whoever was using it in the AOSP, you could use it. In the S23 Ultra, it takes a good amount of time and you going into the menu of the color palette to actually pick up the color palette from the new wallpaper. It is not that automatic or seamless and spreads throughout the UI. Yes, in few of the first party apps, it does spread out. In comparison, the 7 Pro does a better job because obviously I use way more first party apps on the 7 Pro. Not that all Google apps have adopted Material You, but way more apps are in sync with the device theming engine than the S23 Ultra. So on the Pixel, you get a shortcut on the lock screen itself to bring up the device controls and just do it from there. Whereas on the Samsung, it's there, you gotta bring down the notification shade and then go to device control and then do it. And that too, tapping on the tile does not help, it takes you into the app. Tapping on the circular button on the top right corner only turns it on and off. One more thing, the spam detection on the Google dialer on Pixel 7 Pro has worked better for me. But another thing I really missed on the S23 Ultra has to be voice typing. Man, I did not think that I would miss voice typing on any phone. I've taken it for granted. I probably use it like 4 times, 5 times a week overall in my usage of the Pixel 7 Pro. But whenever I do, it has been seamless because even after the voice typing is done, to send that particular message, I can just speak it out. I don't have to press the send button. And that's the beauty about the Pixel 7 Pro, which just makes it way more smarter and practical for my day-to-day usage. Really appreciating the Pixel overall, and I have been enjoying it. And I think overall as a phone, especially given its form factor and that the S Pen has not really appealed to me in my personal usage, I'll be going back to the Pixel and obviously tolerating a few of its quirks as well. So yeah, that's been the comparison between everything apart from the cameras about the Pixel 7 Pro and the S23 Ultra. In the camera comparison of these particular phones, I'm gonna cover more in depth about the software features and the way that the camera experience is enhanced by both of these phones in their own shooting modes. Obviously, apart from the regular processing quality, detail levels of these photos and videos captured by the two different phones. With that said, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.